For the first time, the SEC and Big Ten are officially supporting federal legislation that could completely change college sports. After a month of negotiations, both conferences have backed the Protect College Sports Act, a bill that would create national NIL rules, restore transfer regulations, and strengthen eligibility standards and give NCAA more authority to enforce those rules. The compromise also raises the revenue sharing cap to more than $40 million per school while trying to close NIL loopholes that schools have been using to spend even more on athletes. Now the bill needs 60 Senate votes before Congress leaves for recess. If it passes, this could become the biggest piece of college sports legislation since NIL was introduced in 2021. Will Congress finally deliver the stability college athletics has been searching for? Well, it's one of the biggest storylines in college athletics right now. And for the first time in months, there appears to be real momentum toward a federal solution that could bring stability to college sports.
Yeah, so after weeks of intense negotiations with lawmakers, the two most powerful conferences in college athletics, the Big Ten and the SEC, have officially endorsed the Protect College Sports Act. The conferences had previously withheld support over concerns of NIL restrictions, revenue sharing limits, conference governance, and future expansion. Following last-minute revisions to the bill, both conferences agreed that the changes addressed enough of their concerns to publicly support the legislation. That's significant because without the backing of the SEC and Big Ten, many lawmakers were hesitant to move forward with the bill. Now the legislation has its strongest momentum yet and heads now towards a Senate vote.
So the Protect College Sports Act would create the first comprehensive federal framework for modern college sports. Among its biggest provisions, gives the NCAA and conferences antitrust protections to enforce rules. It creates national standards for NIL compensation, restores limits on immediate transfers by allowing one unrestricted transfer, and reinforces standardized eligibility rules, which creates stronger oversight of athlete compensation. Perhaps most importantly, though, the bill attempts to bring consistency to a system that's largely been governed by lawsuits and differing state laws over the past 5 years. If passed, it would represent one of the biggest changes to college athletics since NIL was introduced in 2021. And I like this. I mean, I like a lot of the things that are in there. I mean, I get the only thing that's a little bit negative is they increased some of the revenue sharing, which I think a lot of the big schools benefit from at $40 million plus. They put in some caveats to it to make sure that they're investing in other sports besides football, which is not the end of the world. I mean, the SEC and the Big Ten were going to come out on top on this for sure, but it definitely has put in a lot more oversight to college athletics, which it is desperately needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you look at cases like what we talked about last week on the show with the kid from Tennessee. Like you complain and you see all these things about the NCAA losing all these cases that they should be winning as far as athlete eligibility. And then they go and do something like that where you sit a kid out for 2 weeks because of a $400 flight while he was debating whether or not to join the NFL. So this now gives these guys a format to follow, both the NCAA and the conferences, to where stuff like that doesn't happen anymore.
Will Congress get it across the finish line, though? That's the biggest challenge because the Senate still needs to bring the bill to the floor before lawmakers leave for their August recess, and it requires 60 votes to pass. If successful, the bill would then move to the House before eventually reaching President Donald Trump's desk, where the administration has indicated support for federal college sports legislation. And while there's finally optimism after months of negotiations, there's still no guarantee the legislation reaches a vote before Congress leaves Washington, which leads us back to our old I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only the Schoolhouse Rock song, if you will. For anybody that hasn't seen that, maybe you got to go back and rewatch. There could be a lot of issues with the bill getting it through, but I'm just glad they have, this conferences collectively have agreed to this. Congress wants to get this thing done. So hopefully they're able to make this thing happen. I think it's good for college athletics. I think the money being a little bit high hurts some smaller schools. And, the big schools were always going to get, some love here, but limiting transfers is huge. I think honoring contracts is huge. I think some antitrust law exemption is huge. These are all things that college football absolutely needed before they allowed NIL, and they finally got it.
Yeah, and looking at some of those things you had mentioned, the $40 million must be distributed differently. They'll get $22.5 million for dollars for athlete retention. So more than half of that is going to go to athlete retention, as well as $5 million dedicated to not only women's sports but Olympic sports as well. So that's part of where that extra $40 million comes from.
So this isn't over yet. I mean, the next week could be one of the most important recent college sports history. So if the Senate schedules a vote before recess, the Protect College Sports Act could move one step closer to becoming law. If it misses that window, the bill faces a much tougher road as Congress now shifts their focus towards upcoming midterm elections. Either way, college athletics is inching closer to a defining moment and something that will definitely benefit them in the long run.